Hi everybody. So this is a tutorial to show you how to do the project called Digital Mandala. Now I'm just going to show you here a picture of the final. So what this consists of is a digital collage, if you would. It's a collage with a few pictures in here. There's a beach. You probably don't see the beach, but if you look a little bit closer you might get a glimpse of the beach. Let's see if I can get you to see the beach. Right over here, this is a little view of a shadow part of the beach. Here's a little palm tree and areas like that. You're going to get a better idea about where this palm tree is in the picture and the beaches. There's also a bit of sand over here. But more importantly, in this design, you probably clearly see the Statue of Liberty. You can see pieces, it looks like a barbecued grill. This here is a roller coaster, and although this might look like a slab of pineapple, what it is a cruise ship, but I've put a bunch of different color on it. So when you zoom back out, that collage is seen just as a design. And there's a glow around the edge, and then there's a cool kind of stripy neon lights kind of background going. So this is an example of one of the digital mandalas, something like what I would like you guys to have, a bunch of colors and shapes and stuff like that. So let's get started. So the first step to completing this assignment is you are going to be finding 5 images. If you find a little more, that's completely fine. One is going to be for the background. So you're going to use this to put all of the other images on top of. And so you're going to have 1 for the background, and then you're going to have 4 left over to manipulate on top of the background. So if you decide to have sort of a theme, that would be kind of nice. I picked a beach and a cruise ship and a roller coaster and New York, Statue of Liberty, and a barbecue. So the theme for me would be what I do during the summer. I like to normally go to amusement parks and to the beach and go on cruises and have backyard barbecues, and we like to go into the city, whether we go to Ellis Island, the Statue of Liberty, or just even to Manhattan. We like to do that quite a bit, especially during the summer. So you're going to be using all of these images, and we're going to be putting them into a mandala. What you're also going to have access to is a wedge. So this is a 30-degree wedge template. Each one of these is 30 degrees, and it'll take 12 of them to make a whole circle. This is a 45-degree wedge template in which 8 of them are going to be making a full circle. So it really doesn't matter which one you use, but you're going to choose one. And this is going to be a template in which you're going to use to make your digital mandala. This is going to be your space. So I will be demonstrating both in this video. So I would start off with opening up one of these wedges into Pixlr. Make it the original. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer. And this layer is going to be what I'm going to use for the background. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use the beach. Okay. So if you decide to open up the beach first and then open up the template as a separate layer, that's completely fine too. But the idea is you want to be able to see the template through the beach. So we're going to switch the order. So if I go ahead and drag the beach image down here, it's not letting me. What I have to do is I have to unlock the background. So if I double click on that lock, it just disappears. Another way you can unlock it is if you click on it once, up on the top here, it should reveal an unlock button that you can click. So now you can switch them freely. We're going to change the transparency level of the wedge. And we're going to lower it down so you can see the beach. What this allows you to do is it kind of allows you to maneuver and position this layer where what part of this beach do you want to use. And I want to get a part of the hut, I want to get the sand and the water and the sky. So something in the middle here is perfectly fine. You don't want to change the proportion of this image. Like you can rotate it, of course, but you certainly do not want to change the, you need to change the size, but if you end up going to edit and you go to free distort or free transform and you end up squishing it or stretching it, it's going to mess with the proportion of this 30 degrees, so you don't want to do that. So once you have it set up where you want it to be, the idea is that you want just the beach here. This is, you want to cut out the beach into this piece right here. So you're going to go to the layer that has the wedge. You can use the wand select tool and select inside the wedge. So what you can see is the selection is inside. We're going to go to the beach picture, and you're going to go to Edit, Cut, Edit, Paste. And it pastes it as a new layer. And this new layer is the piece that you need, this right here. I'm going to wiggle it. This is right. This is what you need. Everything else can go into the trash at this point. Okay. So this is the wedge that you're left with, and then the idea is we're going to put the images on top of this. So when you're ready, after you have your images, you can go ahead and open up the other images. And a little trick is if you want them all open at once, if you hold down the command button, if you have the command button, it might be the control button, but there is a way that you can open up multiple images. So I'm going to open up all 4, and they're going to open up separately as different images. Okay, so you can see I have the 30-degree wedge template, and then I have the 3 pictures. So it's at this point you want to change these. You just want to crop out the square. You don't want this to look like a quilt, this collage. You want it to have interesting kind of shapes. So one way you can do this is if you just use like the lasso tool, and you can lasso around, make an interesting shape. You can even make shapes into like stars or flowers. Okay, so I just did kind of a blob. I'm going to go to Edit, Cut, and Edit, Paste. Okay, and then I can get rid of this background here. So now I'm left with this image here. It's at this point you can go to Select All, and you can copy it or cut it, and then you can go to your image here and you can paste it. Okay, you can see it's crazy large on it, but that's okay. You want to make sure that your images that you found were high resolution images. Some are a little higher than others, but that's okay. So I'm just going to put that into place for now. So you're going to keep doing this until you have all of your images selected. So you can use the polygon lasso tool to make something a little more like a starburst or something. Okay, and then you can cut it. And I just want to see if possible if I paste it here. Yep. So you don't have to cut and paste right onto the actual, onto the picture that you started from. You can cut it from this, and then you can paste it. Okay, so I don't need this. After everybody is on top of this wedge, now you're going to start to arrange them. Now, just a little note is, this picture right here, it had background that was all blue. So what I did is instead of using the lasso tool, I went ahead and I just used the wand select tool, and I selected the background, and you can see that it will it'll clear it out. So and got rid of all this blue area, and I cropped it that way. So if you're wondering why, if you look over here, the Statue of Liberty was clearly selected. I just kind of went ahead and I used that magic wand or that wand select tool. It's at this point now you want to start to arrange these, change the position and direction of these. Now, these are going to be spinning around. This is like one of 12 wedges that are going to be spinning around in a circular pattern. So you can certainly arrange these and have the shapes upside down. You know, you want it to look a bit surreal and sort of kind of interesting looking. I'm purposely kind of taken out. I don't really want that straight line down here to be noticeable at all, so I'm just going to pull that off of the picture plane, like outside of the wedge, and that's completely fine. I'll show you what we're going to do next after we're done. So a couple things you can do. If you find that you want to like add a little bit of interest, visual interest, you can certainly change the color of some of these items. Now, the way I have these arranged, you can see I'm really covering up the beach quite a bit, and that's fine. But you see there's a lot of blues and greens in the design, including the background. So if I wanted to take one of these images and change it, I can certainly do that. One of the things you can try is maybe go to hue saturation. So I grabbed this Dorney Park roller coaster. Maybe I'll colorize it and make it a specific color. I want that to stand out. Now you can do this to all of your images if you want, maybe some of your images. Another thing you can do is if you wanted to put like a glow or a shadow or an outline around it, if you go to filter and we go to outer glow, for example, you can put a glow around some of your images as well. Let's go with a nice yellowish color. I think that would be really nice looking. And again, just creating some visual interest to your collage. Now, the one thing you might notice that's pretty obvious is that you don't see the wedge anymore and you have like these pieces sticking out. So we're just going to clean up our wedge. To do this, you're going to go to the last layer, the lower layer. By the way, if you wanted some things in front and behind, you know you can move these images in front of and behind each other. I want this cruise ship, for example, to be in the front, so I'm going to drag it in front like that. So once you're happy with the arrangement, and again, I encourage you overlapping, and it's okay if you don't see the background. You don't have to see the whole thing, of course. You can go ahead and, again, you're going to clean up the outside. So to do this, you're going to go to the lower layer, and that has the wedge. You're going to use the wand select and select in this negative space here. And then you're going to go to each one of those layers on top, and you hit it, you click on it, and you hit delete. And what it'll do is it'll clear out what is outside of that, what's inside the selection, which is the background. Now, once you're done with it, hit Command D to get rid of the selection. Now we're going to merge these layers together. So you can click on any one of these layers, and down here you want to hit Merge Visible. So what it'll do is it'll connect everybody into one layer. So these guys should move around. Let me unlock my layer. Now this should move around freely. Okay. Now that I have my wedge done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this wedge design over to my background quadrant template. So this is another thing that you can access from Classroom. You're going to download it and be able to access it. And it's this image right here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the wedge over here. So to do that, you select all, copy it, and then we'll paste it. Okay. You're going to make it the right size, and it's going to fit right over here. It's okay if this line here extends beyond the line there. You just don't want it to extend the width of the image. Now, I did not rotate this wedge when I was laying it out onto the beach picture. So it should be, the way I drew it is it was really flat and it was really straight. So this is going to sit really nicely on this line right here. So that's what you want. You might need to rotate it by hitting this button over here, but mine is perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of it and we're going to flip it. So each one of these wedges is going to be flipped as it spins around the circle. So when you're on the Arrange tool, up here you have this option to duplicate. If you're not on the Arrange tool or you just have problems locating it, you can always get to it by clicking on your layer settings here, and it appears here. Okay. But if you're on the Arrange tool as you're moving it around, it should show up over here. So you hit duplicate, And now we're going to flip this. So I tend to just flip it horizontally. So now we're going to rotate this image. We don't want to change the size at all. You definitely don't want to make this larger or smaller. Keep it the same exact. It should be exactly like the other one. But you want to rotate it so these two lines, these two edges line up. And take your time on this. Make it really good. Make sure there's no gaps or overlapping. It should be nice and even. And I'll show you some ways that you can just double check. So I have it really pretty close. So now before I do anything, I'm going to kind of come up really close. And as you look at it, also look at this edge here. Make sure that this line, this piece isn't too far out. And you can use the arrows next to the, on your keyboard there's these little arrows, and you can really line it up. And if you zoom in, you can really see it. So down one more time. Now if this flipped the way I had it and then it flipped upside down, this next one's going to be flipped over just as this first one was. So I'm going to click on the first one, make sure it's active, and that's what I'm going to make a copy of. I'm going to duplicate that. Now I won't need to flip it. All I have to do is rotate it. Oops. It happens all the time. I select the wrong one. So just let me fix this. That's the one. So I'm going to move him over and get him in position. When you're done with this, check, like I said, check these seams right here. My suggestion is to zoom in to where the seams are, especially like this area right here, right where my cursor is. Like I could see that. Maybe I'll move it down a pixel or two. Move this into place. Okay. So after this looks good and your seams look good, now you might say, well, I'm only 1/4 of the way there because now I have, 3 more here, 3 more here. I have 9 more to do. No. What you can do is you can merge these layers together. So go to your top layer right here and merge down, and go to the second to last one, or second to top one, merge down until you have all of those merged together. Got it? So what you can do now is you can make a copy, and you can flip it and put it in place here. Okay, again, you're going to maneuver it. Line them up. Use the arrows, line it up. Now you don't necessarily at this point have to use the quadrant, but I like to use it. It helps me to keep things in check. Right, that looks good. Now I can merge these two halves, or these 2 quarters together into a half. I can duplicate it, and I can flip it vertically this time and bring this down. It's very important. If you look in the middle of your design, that's really going to dictate how this looks. So if you see it kind of like sideways here, crooked, this will really, see gaps and stuff. This is really going to help you make sure that it's like all kind of even. If the middle looks even, everything else is going to look even. So now I'm going to merge the 2 halves together. And if I zoom out, that is my done mandala. So now that when you're done with this image, the very last thing I'd like you to do is to create a background. Now the background could just be a solid color. So you can go ahead and pick a color, any color, and you can use the paint bucket and dump it into the background. And don't worry about the color being, putting it onto this quadrant already, because honestly, you don't see it anyway when you put this big mandala on your project. Cool thing about this is if you don't like this color, instead of selecting and dumping, selecting and dumping, you can go to hue saturation and then just drag the hue around until it's a color that you find pleasing. See, I would probably go with something along a warm yellow or something, because there is a lot of like purples and stuff on there. So if I lighten it up and maybe try to see if I can get something in the yellow family. I'm going to colorize it, and then it'll let me pick that color. Increase the lightness. There we go. So if you want to get like a yellow in there, you can do that. Another thing you can do, you can put a gradient inside. And the gradient might be a little difficult to see, so you want to bring these two stoppers together so that transition happens pretty abruptly. Again, pick your colors. You want to change it to a radial. And this is probably a bit of trial and error. Oops, let's try that again, do radial. Because the transition you might not be able to see, so it's a matter of how long this line needs to be before you can start to even see any of that transition. You can start to see it slightly. So you could definitely put a gradient. Another thing you can do, which I did in the demonstration previously, is that you could use an image. So I'm going to open up a layer, and it's going to be an image. And you might find something kind of cool, like this has a lot of neon stripes to it. And the idea is you're only going to see a corner of it. So you want to pick with, like, maybe this part will look really cool in the corner. So you got to do a little bit of math. This just happens to be a square image. I want this to be in a square. So sometimes, you might need to crop this image into a square first, but you want it to be 1/4 of the size. So, I mean, you can eyeball it if you want to, like this, but the size of this image, this background, is, stretch this out. I don't know if you can see the size yet. The size is indicated over here. It's 3000 by 3000. So to squish it up, I need it to be 1500 by 1500 to make it half. So if I squish this up where the x coordinate is at 1500, more or less, that's probably that, right? That's good. I can make a copy of it. I can flip it. I can move it. So you kind of get the idea. I can merge these guys together. Get them arranged nicely. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm having a problem seeing it. Put them together. That looks great. Alright, I'm happy with that. I am going to merge just these two together. Don't merge it with anything else. I'm going to make a copy. And I'm going to flip it vertically and get this into place. Once again, work really close. Just work on the inside. Everything else will fall into place. The inside gets nice and even. Everything else falls into place. Okay, let's merge these together. Okay, so there's my background. Now I need to move it. Right? I'm going to switch places here. There we go. So that looks really great. So once again, if I'm not happy with the background color, I can certainly go to hue saturation, and I can move the hue around and figure out what kind of color scheme might be better for my design. One last thing is you can also, if you want to make it a little more exciting visually, and this is just up to you, is you can certainly take your mandala and put an outer glow on it. I'm just going to leave mine white. If you decide to put a color on it, you can do that. I usually like the feathering to be at 100%, and then you can kind of adjust the opacity. And that looks fantastic. So that is a design with a 30 degree. I'll have a little demonstration with the... So I just wanted to mention that for those people that want to do the 45 degree wedge, instead of the 30. There's two things to consider, two things that are different. First of all, you're going to have a lot more space. So your images will probably end up being kind of larger, and for some people you might like the idea of them fitting, having more space to fill and to be able to make them larger. But the same rules will apply where you want them to overlap each other, and you do want them to, be kind of interesting in the design. You want the images to be cropped. And the other thing that's going to be different is that in this design, when you apply these to when you put these in the background template, the background quadrant template, you're not going to need 12 of them in each of the corners. In each of the quadrants, you only need 2. So there's 4 quadrants, so you'll need a total of 8. So those are the two significant differences, is the idea that these wedges are bigger, so you certainly have a lot more room to move these objects around, but then also when it comes down to setting them up in that space, you have a bit more room. You have a little easier time because you won't need to have so many of them. Okay. And as I mentioned, you have a little, this part is a little easier when you're dealing with the 45-degree pie pieces. But there's a lot of similarities. So it's just really a matter of what you want to do. So again, you line this guy up right along that line there. Get the corner. Hitting the corner and the little point of your wedge, hitting the center of your quadrant. You're going to be making a copy, and you're going to be flipping it, and you're going to be rotating it. So it's the same thing as before. Like I said, we'll just be doing this less times. I'm going to start this rotation, and let me bring this down a bit. Okay, so I'm going to hit this. I'm going to merge down. Better. I am going to duplicate, flip it, put it in place. Okay, and then once again, duplicate, merge these two together. Duplicate and flip vertically and put that into place there. You get the general idea. So while this design might look a little different, and you might prefer one over the other, by doing this demonstration, I hope you can kind of see which one you might be more interested in doing. Personally, my preference, I like doing the 12 30-degree pie pieces better than this, but either one is good for you guys. Okay, good luck with everything.